Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a story for you that's a little different, a little unexpected, and trust me, it's going to have you thinking long after it's over. We're diving into a morning that started just like any other but quickly took a turn no one saw coming. Imagine this. Soft golden light, the quiet hum of a refrigerator, and the comforting scent of coffee filling the air. That was Sheila's morning. 6 months into her marriage with Daniel, a kind man with calm eyes, she was still finding her rhythm. His son, Ethan, had just moved back home after college. Sheila, being the warm and open person she is, really wanted to connect with him, to be a friend, not some distant stepmom. But there was always this unexplainable something about Ethan. He was polite, respectful, even helpful, carrying groceries, fixing things around the house that Daniel never got to. Yet every time Sheila looked at him, she felt a subtle unease. His smile would linger a little too long. His eyes held a depth that just unsettled her. She'd scold herself, "Stop thinking like that, Sheila. He's just being nice." We've all had those moments, right? Where our gut tells us one thing, but our head tries to rationalize it away. The house was peaceful, almost too peaceful after Daniel left for work. Sheila, lost in thought, leaned against the counter, coffee in hand. Ethan's door was closed, but she could hear faint movements inside. Maybe he was getting ready for his morning jog. She smiled, tidying the kitchen, the clinking of cups blending with the distant chirping of birds. Her life had settled into a comfortable routine, and she liked it that way. Calm, steady, simple. But that morning, simple was about to get a serious plot twist. As Sheila walked down the hallway with a basket of laundry, she noticed Ethan's door wasn't fully closed, just a thin line of light spilling onto the floor. Thinking he'd forgotten to shut it, she stepped closer, planning to knock or just gently push it closed. But as she reached the door, she froze, a quiet sound from inside, a faint sigh, then the creak of a bed. Sheila's hands went still. For a moment, confusion, then a sudden heart-racing realization. She should have turned away. Her mind screamed, "Go back, Sheila!" But her feet wouldn't move. It wasn't curiosity or desire, it was pure shock. The sound grew clearer, a soft rhythm, tiny movements that painted a vivid, undeniable picture. Heat rushed to her cheeks. She backed away quickly, the laundry basket trembling in her hands, her breath catching in her throat. She practically ran to the kitchen, setting the basket down, leaning against the counter, her pulse still pounding. Shame burned through her. You shouldn't have looked, you shouldn't have stayed. But the image, the feeling, the strange rush of emotion it stirred inside her, it refused to fade. She tried to distract herself, cleaning, wiping, opening drawers, anything to break the spell. But every small sound from down the hall made her heart skip. Then footsteps. Ethan walked into the kitchen, hair slightly messy, looking perfectly normal in a t-shirt and joggers. He smiled gently, the same kind smile as always. "Good morning," he said softly. Sheila spun around, pretending to be busy with the dishes. "Morning," she replied, her voice tighter than she wanted, refusing to look at him. She couldn't. He poured himself water, calm, natural. But when he turned his head slightly, she caught his reflection in the glass window. For a second their eyes met. Just a flicker. But it was enough. Her chest tightened. Did he know she'd been there? Did he sense something? He smiled faintly again. "You're up early today." "Couldn't sleep," she said quietly, forcing a smile. "Just one of those mornings." "Yeah," he said, nodding, his tone light. "I get that." The air between them was thick, not with words, but with a silence that said too much. The hum of the fridge, the ticking clock, the soft creak of his chair as he sat down. Every sound felt amplified. Sheila finished her coffee, setting the cup down carefully, still avoiding his gaze. Her heart hadn't calmed since the hallway. She wanted to forget, to erase the memory. But something deep inside whispered that this day was only just beginning. And that small, strange moment had changed everything. The morning light still shone softly, calm and warm, but inside Sheila, everything felt profoundly uncertain. She didn't know it yet, but this quiet morning would be the last peaceful one for a very, very long time. Whew. What a morning for Sheila, right? That feeling of accidentally stumbling upon something so private and then having to act normal, it's a whole different level of awkward, where everything looks normal on the surface, but inside your whole world feels upside down. Our story starts with Sheila on a morning that began like any other. The sun was streaming in, painting her house in soft gold. But inside Sheila, things were anything but calm. Her heart was doing flip-flops, refusing to settle down after something she'd just witnessed. Every tick of the clock, every familiar sound, just brought it all back. She tried to busy herself, washing dishes, wiping counters, anything to distract her mind. But her hands moved on autopilot, while her thoughts kept replaying that half-open door, that soft sound she definitely wasn't supposed to hear. She felt a flush of embarrassment, even shame. Why didn't she just turn away? But she hadn't, and that truth burned. The house fell silent again except for the insistent ticking of the clock, echoing her own restless heartbeat. Her husband Daniel was out, and Ethan, his son, had just left for his jog. That should have brought peace, right? Instead, the silence felt loud, filled with thoughts she couldn't quiet. She sat by the window, looking at Daniel's beautiful garden, blooming with life. She whispered to herself, "Forget it, Sheila. It was nothing." But deep down, she knew. It was definitely not nothing. When Ethan returned, his footsteps were light and confident. He walked into the kitchen, a healthy sheen of sweat on his skin, looking a little older, more mature in the morning light. He smiled easily, as if nothing in the world was amiss. "Morning again," he said, his voice carrying that calm that always disarmed her. Sheila quickly looked up, trying to act casual. "Hey, you went out early." He just nodded. "Yeah, helps clear my head." As he reached for a glass, his arm brushed hers. It was a small, innocent touch, but her heart leaped before her mind could catch up. A sharp breath escaped her lips. Ethan paused, and their eyes met. No nervous smiles, no laughter. Just a deep, heavy silence that made the air thick with unspoken things. He poured his water, each swallow echoing in the quiet space. Then he asked, "I was thinking you've seemed off since morning. Is everything okay?" His question caught her completely off guard. She looked down at her hands. "I'm fine, just didn't sleep much last night." He nodded, unconvinced. "You sure it's not something else?" She forced a smile. "No, really, it's nothing." But she could feel his gaze linger. It wasn't demanding, just searching, gentle but curious. He knew something had changed, even if neither of them would dare name it. The day dragged on. Daniel called, saying he'd be home late. Sheila listened, gave her usual answers and hung up. Every sound in the house, every scrape of a chair, every echo of footsteps felt magnified, alive. As evening settled, the golden light returned just like that morning. Ethan was on the couch, lost in his phone. Sheila walked past with folded laundry and he called out, "Hey, Sheila," his voice low. She turned, her heart quickening. "Yes?" He hesitated. "You've been acting strange today. Did I do something?" His words froze her. Her throat tightened. "No, Ethan. It's nothing like that." He stood, taking a small step closer, his voice softening. "You sure? Because if I made you uncomfortable somehow, I'd like to know." Her hands trembled. "You didn't," she whispered. "I just, had a long morning, that's all." For a moment, they just stood there, the distance between them feeling thinner than air. She could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the whisper of her own breath. Ethan smiled faintly, a quiet relief in his eyes. "Okay," he said softly. "If you say so." He stepped back, turning toward the stairs, but before he went up, he looked at her again. His eyes held something she couldn't quite decipher, something that made her heart ache in a way she didn't understand. When he finally disappeared, Sheila exhaled, realizing she'd been holding her breath. She sat down, pressing her palms to her face. Her thoughts spun. Why am I feeling like this? She asked herself silently. He's Daniel's son. He's family. But even as she repeated the words, they sounded empty. The memory of that morning pulsed in her mind, a heartbeat she couldn't quiet. As night fell, the air grew cooler, the faint chirping of crickets outside. Sheila went to her room, turned off the lights, and sat in the darkness. But the silence brought no peace. It brought back every sound she'd tried to forget. The soft sigh, the slow breath, the quiet rhythm behind that half-open door. She closed her eyes and whispered, "It was just a mistake. You saw something you shouldn't have, let it go." But she knew, deep down, something had shifted. A line had been crossed silently, without touch, without words. And though the house looked the same, the world inside her heart was no longer calm. Outside, the wind brushed against the windows, and in that faint sound, she could almost hear the echo of her own heartbeat. Fast, uneven, and afraid of what tomorrow might bring. Wow, what a story, right? It really makes you think about those moments where everything changes even without a single word. What do you think Sheila saw? And what do you think she should do? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into Sheila's world, please give this video a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next story. The morning light streams into the kitchen just like any other day. But for Sheila, nothing feels quite the same. The gentle rhythm she used to love? Gone. Now, the clock ticking, the curtains rustling, even her own breathing, it all seems sharper, louder. She's at the sink, washing a cup, but her thoughts are miles away. She wants this morning to be normal, to find that calm she always has, but there's this tension like a thick mist clinging to her. Then Ethan walks in. Barefoot, fresh from the shower, a soft good morning. His tone is polite but uncertain. Sheila looks up, forces a smile, but her voice comes out thin, almost a whisper. And suddenly the silence stretches, heavy and echoing. The only sound is the distant hum of the fridge. She tries to focus on her coffee, but she can feel him there. Warm, close, so familiar. Every little movement he makes. The clink of his spoon, the scrape of a chair, it all feels amplified. Her fingers tremble slightly as she puts her cup down. What is this feeling? Just guilt, she tells herself. You're overthinking it. But the more she tries to push it away, the heavier it gets. He's pretending to scroll on his phone, but she knows he's watching her. And when their eyes meet, just for a heartbeat, something inside her tightens. It's a tiny look, brief and seemingly harmless, but it lingers. He breaks the silence. Dad said he'll be home late again tonight. She nods. Yes, he mentioned it. And then he says, that means it'll just be the two of us again. Simple words, right? But the way he says them? Her heart actually stumbles. She laughs lightly, trying to lighten the mood. You make it sound like that's a bad thing. He smiles faintly. No, not bad. Just different. She looks down, pretending to fix her sleeve. Different can be good sometimes. Yeah, he says quietly. Sometimes it can. Another pause, even heavier than the last. Sheila gets up, pretending to check the oven that isn't even on. She can feel his steady, unreadable gaze on her. Oh, how she wishes Daniel, her husband, were home. His calm presence always made everything simple. But lately, Daniel's job keeps him away for long hours, leaving her alone with her thoughts and with Ethan. Later that afternoon, she throws herself into cleaning the living room, vacuuming, dusting, rearranging cushions, anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from wandering. Ethan joins her without asking, offering to help. He lifts the sofa to move it, and she catches herself watching his muscles tense under his shirt for a moment too long. She quickly turns away, embarrassed. Careful, she says, her voice low. It's heavy. He smiles. Don't worry, I've got it. And then, their hands brush as they adjust the rug. It's a tiny touch, barely a second, but her heart reacts instantly. She steps back, pretending to fix a pillow. The moment passes, but something warm stays behind. Ethan notices her discomfort. "You're acting strange again," he says softly, half teasing, half serious. "I'm just tired," she replies, not looking at him. He takes a step closer, not threateningly, just enough to be noticed. "You're not good at lying, you know that?" She freezes. "Excuse me?" He smiles, his eyes kind but so piercing. "You think too much. I can tell when something's bothering you." She looks away, her throat tightening. "You shouldn't try to read people like that." And then he says, so quietly, "Only when they matter." Wow. Those words land gently, but they cut deep. Sheila doesn't know how to respond. Her breath catches and she turns back to the shelves, rearranging photo frames. One of them is a picture of Daniel and Ethan from years ago. Ethan as a boy, laughing in his father's arms. Seeing it makes her chest ache. It's a stark reminder of where the lines are. Lines she shouldn't cross. She sighs and whispers, "You should get ready for dinner. I'll finish up here." He hesitates, then says softly, "Okay," and walks toward the stairs. When he's gone, the room feels bigger, but also emptier. Sheila sinks onto the couch, hands covering her face. The silence returns, thick with unspoken thoughts. That night, Daniel calls again. He's staying late at the office. Sheila says she understands, but a part of her doesn't. She misses him, but she also fears the emptiness his absence creates because it leaves room for thoughts she shouldn't be having. After dinner, Ethan helps her clean up. Their conversation stays light. Weather, movies, all those random things. But beneath the words, there's this tension, something neither of them can ignore. And then their hands brush again, reaching for the same plate. Neither pulls away instantly. That small pause between touch and retreat feels like forever. Sheila smiles nervously. "Go rest, Ethan. I'll handle the rest." He looks at her for a moment, then nods. "Good night, Sheila." "Good night," she whispers. When he leaves the kitchen, Sheila leans against the counter, closing her eyes. Her heart is still racing. Outside, rain begins to fall softly, tapping against the windows. The sound fills the silence, slow and rhythmic like a heartbeat. She wraps her arms around herself, feeling warmth and guilt mixed together in ways she can't understand. The clock ticks steadily, marking each second of the quiet. The house is calm again, but Sheila knows the peace she once had is gone. Something invisible has begun to form between them, fragile but undeniably real. Neither of them can pretend it's not there anymore. As she turns off the kitchen light, her reflection in the window stares back at her. Soft, tired, and deeply unsure, she whispers to herself, "What's happening to me?" But there's no answer, only the sound of the rain outside, and the quiet echo of her own heart, beating a little too fast in the stillness of the night. This story really makes you wonder about those unspoken emotions, doesn't it? What do you think Sheila should do? Have you ever felt that unsettling shift in a relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you connected with this story, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. A soft introspective melody begins. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're diving into a story that's all about those quiet, charged moments that change everything. You know, the ones where words aren't even necessary, but you feel everything? Get ready for a tale of unspoken feelings, unexpected discoveries, and a night that shifted everything. Music subtly shifts, becoming a bit more melancholic but still gentle. The rain had finally stopped. That gentle drip from the eaves, the soft sigh of the wind. It was the perfect backdrop for a restless heart. Sheila sat on her couch, a forgotten cup of tea growing cold beside her. Her mind was a whirlwind, replaying a certain moment, trying to label the strange feelings she had for Ethan as just confusion, or maybe even guilt. But every time he smiled, every time he spoke softly, something undeniably powerful stirred inside her. She hated that her heart had stopped listening to reason. A slight pause, music continues. She decided to call it a night, but as she passed Ethan's half-closed door, she paused. Curiosity? Fear? Or something deeper she dared not name? She turned away quickly, escaping to her own room, changing, and slipping into bed. But even in the quiet dark, her mind wouldn't settle. She tossed and turned, the silence almost too loud. And then, 3 soft knocks. Music becomes very soft, almost ethereal. Sheila? Ethan's voice, quiet and hesitant, cut through the night. Her heart skipped. Yes? She whispered back. There was a pause, thick with unspoken thoughts. Can I talk to you for a second? He asked. She hesitated, her throat dry. At this hour? I need to clear something up, he said, his tone gentle, uncertain. After a moment, she whispered, Okay, come in. Music builds slightly with a touch of anticipation. The door creaked open, revealing Ethan's tall frame in the soft hallway light. He stood there, nervous, one hand brushing the back of his neck. His voice trembled slightly. You've been acting strange lately, he began. I thought maybe it was something I did. Sheila gripped her blanket, looking down. You didn't do anything, Ethan. He stepped closer, his shadow falling across her bed. You sure? Because I feel like something changed between us. And I think I know when. Her heart began to pound. She swallowed hard, forcing a weak laugh. You're imagining things, we're fine. He shook his head slowly. I don't think I am. The wind outside filled the silence. Then, quietly but clearly, he spoke the words that stopped her world. You saw me that morning, didn't you? Music becomes more intense but still gentle, reflecting a poignant revelation. The secret hung in the air. Sheila's breath caught. She looked up, eyes wide, unsure what to say. But he wasn't angry. His expression was soft, understanding, almost tender. I didn't mean to, she whispered. The door was open. I wasn't thinking. He nodded slowly. I figured. But ever since then, you've been distant. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Her voice trembled. I should have walked away. I should have closed the door. He smiled faintly. It's okay. You don't have to explain. But she felt she had to. The guilt had been eating her alive. No, Ethan, it's not okay. I shouldn't have stayed. I don't even know why I did. It was wrong. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to feel bad. We all have moments we can't explain. Music softens again, becoming very intimate and emotional. Their eyes met. His were calm, sincere. The silence deepened, filled only by the echo of her own heartbeat. He hesitated, then said softly, It's strange. I thought you'd hate me after that, but you didn't. You just seemed sad. She shook her head, her voice breaking. I don't hate you, Ethan. I just don't know how to feel. He took a small step, and the distance between them disappeared. He stood by her bed, his hand resting lightly on the edge of the blanket. The air felt charged, heavy with unspoken desires. Maybe you don't have to understand it, he said quietly. Maybe it just happened. Sheila's breath trembled. She looked up at him, eyes glossy in the soft light. Ethan. He didn't move closer, just waited, giving her the choice. Time suspended. The quiet hum of the house, the faint rustle of curtains, the soft ticking of the clock, all faded into one long heartbeat. Finally, Sheila whispered, You should go to bed. It's late. He nodded slowly but didn't leave right away. His eyes searched hers one last time, and in that gaze they both said everything they couldn't with words. Then he stepped back. Good night, he said softly. Sheila's voice was barely a whisper. Good night. Music gently fades out, leaving a lingering, reflective tone. The door closed, leaving her in the quiet dark. Her heart still raced, her mind spinning with everything left unsaid. She knew something had truly changed tonight. Not through touch, not through action, but through a shared truth. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was filled with understanding, and that made it more dangerous, more profound than anything else. She lay back down, a soft sigh escaping her lips. Why does it feel like we've already crossed the line? Wow, what a moment, right? That feeling of a deep connection forming, even amidst confusion. The sun is shining, the sky is a soft blue. But for Sheila, standing at her kitchen counter wrapped around a warm mug, peace feels a million miles away. Her heart is caught somewhere dark, replaying every word, every look from last night. Ethan's words. The way silence had filled the room like its own character. Nothing was wrong exactly, but everything felt off. Something had shifted between them. Something she couldn't undo. She tells herself, Sheila, you're older, wiser, you know better. But as we all know, emotions don't always listen to reason, do they? Then, soft footsteps. It's Ethan. She doesn't even need to look. She feels his presence. Morning, he says, calm and gentle, as if everything is perfectly normal. Sheila forces a small smile. Good morning. He looks freshly showered, radiating a casual confidence and, dare I say, a little too much warmth. He moves to the coffee pot. You're up early again. Couldn't sleep, she replies quietly. The silence stretches, filled only by the soft drip of coffee and the faint tick of a clock. When he hands her a spoon, their fingers brush. Lightly, accidentally, but her pulse? It reacts instantly. Ethan notices. His hand lingers just for a second. Their eyes meet, and in that gaze, everything they can't say out loud is spoken. Sheila gently pulls her hand back. Ethan, she whispers, her voice trembling. This can't continue. He frowns just slightly. What can't? The way things feel, she says, her tone low. It's not right. He looks at her, his expression soft but firm. I know what you mean, but feelings don't always ask permission, do they? Wow, right? Her breath catches. Ethan, he takes a slow step closer. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, he says quietly. His voice breaks a little. I can't pretend I don't feel it. Sheila turns away, her heart pounding. Don't say that, please. But he doesn't move. His voice softens even more, barely a whisper. You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. The silence that follows is heavy. The hum of the fridge, her unsteady breathing. She can feel him behind her close, his warmth a silent question. When she finally turns, their faces are inches apart. Her heart is racing. This isn't supposed to happen, she whispers. Maybe not, he replies gently. But it's happening anyway. Her lips part, but no sound comes. The world blurs, just the two of them, in that quiet kitchen where time seems to stand still. Sheila takes a step back, her voice barely a whisper again. You should go get some air, please. Ethan hesitates, searching her eyes, trying to understand what she's not saying. Then he nods slowly. Okay. As he walks towards the door, he pauses, looking back. Sheila, he says quietly. You don't have to be afraid of what's already true. The door closes gently behind him. Sheila stands frozen, her chest aching with confusion. Anger, guilt, sadness, or something dangerously close to longing. The house feels emptier. She tries to busy herself, but her thoughts keep circling back to Ethan. Every sound outside makes her heart jump. Later, the sky darkens and a light drizzle begins. Sheila sits by the window, listening to the rain, thinking about her life before Ethan. Simple, calm, predictable. And now, one look, one confession, has turned that calm into a beautiful, complicated chaos. Then, the door opens again. Ethan walks in, his shirt damp, hair tousled. His eyes find hers immediately. Neither speaks for a long moment. You're soaked, she says quietly, standing up. He smiles faintly. I forgot my umbrella. Without thinking, Sheila grabs a towel. Here, she says softly, reaching up to dry his hair. Her hands move gently, trembling. He closes his eyes for a second, letting the moment linger. When she realizes how close they are, her hands stop. Their eyes meet again. Too close, too long. The air is electric, heavy with unspoken words. And then before she can stop herself, she does something she never planned. She presses her hand gently against his cheek. It's not about desire. It's something deeper, something profoundly emotional. The kind of touch that speaks everything she can't. Ethan doesn't move, doesn't break the moment. He just looks at her, his expression soft, vulnerable. Sheila pulls her hand away quickly, stepping back, her voice trembling. I'm sorry. That was a mistake. Ethan shakes his head. No, he says softly. It was real. Her eyes fill with tears. That's what scares me. He takes a breath, then turns towards the door again. Maybe some truths are meant to scare us, he says quietly, and then he's gone. Sheila stands alone, the towel still in her hands, her heart racing, her mind a storm of guilt and emotion. The rain outside grows heavier, a rhythm to her confusion. She whispers to herself, "What did I just do?" But there's no answer. Only the rain and the echo of her heartbeat reminding her that something irreversible has just begun. Wow, what a story, right? It really makes you think about how our hearts can lead us into unexpected places. What do you think Sheila should do next? Intro music fades out. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Ever had a moment so electric, so unexpected, it completely rewrites the rules of your world? That's exactly what happened to Sheila. Today we're diving into a story where the air is thick with unspoken feelings, and a single touch can change everything. Get ready, because this is going to be a wild ride. The rain had stopped, but the morning air still felt fresh and new, carrying the scent of damp earth. A soft mist clung to the windows, making the sunlight look like something out of a dream. Inside, the house breathed quietly, peaceful on the surface, but beneath that calm, something was stirring. Sheila was by the stove waiting for her kettle to boil. That gentle whistle was slowly building, mixing with the soft tick-tock of the kitchen clock. She tried so hard to pretend it was just another ordinary morning, but her heart knew better. Nothing felt ordinary anymore. Her mind kept replaying last night. That moment, so fleeting, yet so monumental. The way her hand had briefly touched his face, the warmth of his skin, the look in his eyes just before she pulled away. It hadn't been planned. It certainly wasn't right. But oh, it had been real. Too real. She rubbed her temples, whispering to herself, "You crossed the line, Sheila. You crossed it without meaning to." The kettle shrieked, pulling her back to reality. She quickly turned it off, desperately trying to silence not just the sound, but the frantic thoughts swirling in her head. But silence, ironically, only made everything clearer, more vivid. A few minutes later, Ethan came downstairs. His footsteps were soft, careful, almost hesitant. He walked into the kitchen, his voice a quiet morning greeting. "Morning." Sheila looked up briefly. "Morning," she replied, her tone calm, perhaps a little too distant. He poured himself some coffee and stood beside her. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It felt familiar now, like a living thing they both silently acknowledged. Sheila tried to force some normalcy into the situation. "Your dad called last night," she said, her eyes fixed on the counter. "He'll be back tomorrow." Ethan nodded slowly. "That's good." His voice was steady, but there was a softness to it, as if each word was carefully chosen. They sat across from each other at the small breakfast table. The morning light stretched between them, warm but thin, like a fragile thread connecting their separate worlds. Sheila sipped her tea, her mind a whirlwind of unspoken words. She wanted to apologize again, to somehow erase the strange closeness that had formed, but every time her eyes met his, her courage seemed to melt away. Ethan was the one who finally broke the tension. You don't have to act like last night didn't happen. Her eyes snapped up. Ethan, please. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, he said quickly, his voice gentle. I don't want to pretend it meant nothing. She shook her head, her voice trembling. You don't understand. What happened was wrong. I shouldn't have. You didn't do anything wrong, he interrupted softly. You just felt something. We both did. His calmness was unsettling. It wasn't childish or reckless, it was quiet, sincere, steady, and that made it so much harder to dismiss. She looked away, her hands tightening around her cup. You can't talk like that, Ethan. People would never understand. I'm not talking to people, he said gently, those words hitting her harder than she expected. The way he said you carried such weight, a tenderness that seemed to fill the entire room. For a moment neither moved. The only sound was the soft tapping of raindrops still dripping from the roof outside. Sheila stood up, needing distance, needing to escape. I have things to do, she said, her voice shaky, and began to busy herself, tidying the counter, wiping the table, anything to distract herself. Ethan stood too, watching her quietly. You don't have to keep running away from this. Her hands froze. I'm not running, she whispered. Yes, you are, he said softly. And I get it. It's confusing. It's not supposed to happen. But it did. She turned toward him slowly, her eyes glistening. You're young. You don't know what you're saying. He offered a faint smile. Maybe I'm young, but I know what I feel. His words made her chest ache. She wanted to scream, to tell him to stop, but no sound would come out. Instead, tears pressed at the back of her eyes. She whispered, We can't talk like this again. Please, Ethan. He nodded slightly, his expression unreadable. Okay, he said. But the tone in his voice spoke volumes. He left the room quietly, and Sheila leaned against the counter, covering her face with her hands. Her heart was pounding, her thoughts a tangled mess of guilt and an undeniable longing. The rest of the day crawled by. Every sound in the house was a reminder of him, his footsteps, the creak of his chair, even the soft way he closed doors, as if trying not to disturb her. That evening she sat on the couch with the TV on, though she wasn't really watching. The sound filled the room, but it couldn't fill the silence inside her. Ethan sat at the far end of the couch, pretending to read something on his phone. Their eyes didn't meet, but they didn't have to. The air between them was charged, filled with a quiet energy. When she got up to go to the kitchen, Ethan followed, offering to help clean up. Their movements were quiet, careful, like a dance they both knew too well. Their hands brushed again, and this time, neither of them pulled away. For a few seconds the world stood still. Then Sheila spoke softly, her voice almost breaking. Ethan, if anyone knew, no one will, he said gently. It's just between us. That phrase, between us, echoed in her mind long after he left the room. Later that night she lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. The house was silent again, except for the faint hum of the night breeze outside. She could hear the echo of Ethan's words in her mind, words that both comforted and terrified her. It's just between us. This secret had been born, not out of choice, but out of quiet moments, out of things left unsaid. And though she told herself she'd end it, deep down she knew. Secrets have a way of growing when left in the dark. She turned onto her side, pulling the blanket closer, listening to the faint sound of footsteps in the hallway. They stopped outside her door just for a second before fading away again. Sheila closed her eyes, her heart racing. The night was calm, but her soul was not. The secret between, imagine a house, seemingly peaceful, but underneath, a silent current of unease pulls everything apart. That's exactly where we find Sheila. The days for Sheila felt normal on the surface. The familiar sounds of the kettle, the clock, the gentle hum of life, they were all there. But for Sheila, this routine was just a mask. Every time her stepson, Ethan, entered a room, her calm facade would crack. The air between them, thick with unsaid things, became a silent language. She cooked, she cleaned, she even managed to smile, but her heart was screaming a different story. Then Daniel, her husband, returned from his work trip. You'd think his presence would bring comfort, right? Instead, it just amplified the tension. He noticed the quietness between Sheila and Ethan, but couldn't grasp its true depth. One evening at dinner, Daniel was laughing, sharing a work story, completely oblivious. Sheila, however, was barely listening. Her mind was fixed on Ethan, sitting right across from her. Their eyes met for just a second and Sheila quickly looked away, her fork trembling slightly in her hand. Daniel, sensing something was off, asked, "You okay, honey? You seem distracted." Sheila forced a weak smile. "Just tired, that's all." Ethan, meanwhile, remained silent, head down, fingers tapping a rhythm against his glass that somehow mirrored Sheila's own racing heart. Later that night, the weight of guilt became unbearable for Sheila. Standing by her bedroom window, watching the moonlight, her reflection looked pale and tired. It wasn't just about what she'd done. It was about what she felt. She whispered to herself, "It has to stop. Whatever this is, it has to end before it destroys everything." But as she turned around, she froze. Ethan was standing in the doorway, his face half lit by the moonlight. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said softly. Sheila took a shaky breath. "You shouldn't be here, Ethan." He stepped closer. "I know, but I had to talk to you." Her pulse quickened. "About what?" He hesitated, his eyes steady but filled with a raw emotion. "You've been avoiding me since Dad came back. I get it. But pretending nothing happened doesn't make it go away." Sheila shook her head, her voice trembling. "We can't talk about this. Not here. Not ever again." He took another step forward, closing the distance between them. "Then tell me it meant nothing. Tell me that when you touched me that night it didn't matter." Her breath hitched. "Ethan, don't. Tell me," he repeated softly, his voice low and breaking. Sheila turned away, tears welling up. "I can't say that." "Because it's not true," he murmured, barely audible. The silence that followed was suffocating, punctuated only by the loud ticking of the clock in the hallway. Each second felt like an eternity. Finally, Sheila whispered, "Do you have any idea what this could do to us? To your father?" He closed his eyes. "I'm not asking for anything, Sheila. I can't pretend anymore." She shook her head, her heart twisting painfully. "You're young, Ethan. You think what you feel is love, but it's confusion. This, whatever this is, it's wrong." He looked at her then, his eyes shining under the dim light. "Maybe it's wrong, but it's real. And I've never felt anything more real in my life." His words hit her like a wave. Her heart desperately wanted to believe him, but her mind screamed no. She took a step back, her voice barely steady. "You have to stop, please. If you care about me, you'll let this go." He stared at her for a long, agonizing moment. Then, his voice broke softly. "I can't, Sheila. You're in my head all the time, even when I try not to think about you." Her breath trembled as he moved closer, bridging the distance between them. She could feel his warmth, hear his heartbeat in the quiet room. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Don't make me choose." He looked deep into her eyes. "I'm not asking you to choose. I just needed you to know that I'm not ashamed of how I feel." Her tears finally fell. "But I am," she said, her voice cracking. That broke something in both of them. He stepped back, his face tightening as if holding back his own tears. The silence shattered, replaced by the weight of everything unsaid. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I shouldn't have come." He turned to leave, his footsteps slow and heavy. Before stepping out, he paused. "I'll keep my distance, but please, don't hate me for loving you." The door closed softly behind him. Sheila stood frozen, her chest aching with every heartbeat. The tears wouldn't stop. She pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from crying out loud. The guilt, the longing, the fear, all of it crashed down at once. She sank to the floor beside the window, the moonlight spilling across her trembling hands. Outside, the wind picked up, whispering through the trees like a restless spirit. The house was silent again, but this silence wasn't peaceful. It was the sound of something breaking quietly inside her. Sheila knew things couldn't return to normal. The line had been crossed too many times. Now even pretending would feel like a lie. Hours later, when she finally lay down, she stared at the ceiling, eyes swollen, heart exhausted. She could still hear Ethan's voice echoing in her mind, soft, aching, unforgettable. "Don't hate me for loving you," she whispered into the darkness. "I could never hate you, Ethan, that's the problem." And with that heartbreaking truth, the last piece of her calm slipped away. It's heavy with unspoken words. That first light creeping through the curtains, brushing across a living room where the air just feels different. It smells like coffee and rain, familiar, yet suddenly strange, as if the house itself knows something has shifted. That's where Sheila finds herself, in the kitchen holding a cold cup, the clock ticking, every sound sharper, final. She hadn't slept. The night was a loop of silence, and Ethan's voice, "Don't hate me for loving you." Raw, honest, etched into her heart. She's waiting, dreading, longing for footsteps. Then they come. Soft, hesitant. Ethan appears in the doorway, tired eyes, a travel bag slung over his shoulder. "You're leaving," she whispers. He nods. "Yeah, I think it's time." Her heart drops. She knew this was coming, but hearing it out loud, it feels like all the air just left the room. "Does your father know?" she asks, her voice barely steady. Ethan explains he told his dad he got a short-term job out of town. "He doesn't suspect anything," he says. Sheila exhales slowly. Maybe that's for the best. He steps closer, setting his bag down. "It's not easy walking away from this, Sheila. From you." Her eyes are shimmering. "You have to," she whispers back. "It's the only way we can both breathe again." A silence settles, filled with ordinary sounds. The wind, the clock, the fridge hum. But they sound like a goodbye song now. Ethan breaks the quiet. "You know, when I first came back here, I didn't expect any of this. I thought you'd just be my dad's wife, kind, quiet, distant. But you were more than that. You saw me when I felt invisible." Tears finally spill down Sheila's cheeks. "And you made me feel alive again when I thought that part of me was gone forever." The words hang in the air, trembling. They just stand there, two people caught between what's right and what feels real. Finally, Ethan reaches out, hesitantly taking her hand. His touch is gentle, reverent, saying everything he can't. She doesn't pull away. Their fingers intertwine briefly, a quiet connection that speaks volumes. "You'll forget me," he whispers. "You'll move on. You'll go back to your life." She shakes her head. "I'll go back. Yes, but I won't forget." "You don't forget something that changes you." He offers a sad smile. "Then I guess I'll be somewhere in your memory." She tries to smile back, her lips trembling. "Always." A tear slips down his cheek. He lets go slowly, as if releasing her makes it all too real. He picks up his bag. At the doorway, he turns one last time. "You'll tell Dad goodbye for me?" She nods. "And Sheila," his voice breaks. "Thank you. For everything. Even for the mistakes." Her throat tightens. "Take care of yourself, Ethan." He gives her a small, broken smile. "I will. You too." The door opens, letting in the cool morning air. The light outside is soft, golden, wrapping the world in a calmness neither of them feels. He steps out, and the sound of his shoes fades against the wet ground. When the door clicks shut, the house falls silent again. Completely, achingly silent. Sheila sinks into a chair, trembling, her eyes unfocused. The sunlight spreads across the floor, touching the cold coffee cup, the empty chair, the space where he stood. She sits there listening to her own hollow heartbeat. A memory surfaces, his laughter, the light in his eyes. Don't hate me for loving you. She presses a hand over her heart. I never did, she whispers. Hours pass. The world outside goes on. Birds sing, cars pass. But inside Sheila, something quietly closes. When Daniel, her husband, returns, he finds her calm, distant. She smiles, speaks gently, cooks dinner, asks about his day. On the surface, everything is normal, but behind her eyes there's a quiet story he'll never know. That night, as Daniel sleeps beside her, Sheila stares at the ceiling. The house feels peaceful again, but it's not the same peace. It's the quiet after a storm, still and forever changed. She thinks of Ethan, somewhere out there, starting over. She hopes he's okay, hopes he finds someone his age, someone who can love him freely without guilt. Tears slip silently down her cheeks. Be happy, Ethan, even if it's without me. Outside, the wind moves softly through the trees, carrying away the last traces of their secret. The clock ticks, marking time's quiet mercy. Tomorrow morning will come, bright, calm, ordinary. But Sheila knows she'll never see mornings the same way again. Somewhere in the echo of her heart, there will always be his memory, and that quiet, forbidden love that began with a simple mistake and ended with a silent goodbye. As she closes her eyes, a single tear slides down her cheek. It's over. Yet somehow, it will never truly be gone. Thank you for listening to this tender, complicated story. It reminds us how powerful memories can be, even in goodbyes. If this resonated with you, give us a like, share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that explore the depths of human emotion. We appreciate you being here.